few minutes ago, or a little while ago, I introduced you to this feijoa, pineapple guava. And there is a large one not far away. In fact, there's 2 or 3 in here. They're 15 or 18 feet high. They're 30 years old. And here, I don't know if you can see it, are some flowers from the large one. And they have petals. They're technically sepals, sit behind the petals, but they're edible. They're fleshy, pink, white, scented, and really quite delicious. Here's the back of the flower. Here's a petal, and with a fingernail, you take it off. If you leave the flowers on the tree and just take some petals, you will not hurt the flower, and you will not prevent the fruit from growing. And if you sit in a chair and watch this tree while it's flowering, there are little birds that come here and take those petals off and feed them to their young, the little silver eyes in particular. So flower petals are food also, if you know how to use them. That's a feijoa. A little while ago I mentioned a California holly oak, Quercus agrifolia, beautiful, tough, fast, big, a mugwort. Sorry, I meant to be on the end. And out here on the end are several things. Here's a Moreton Bay fig. They're not easy to grow here. We do get some frosts. I have one up on the top of the hill, protected by some other plants, and most of the frost rolls down the hill, so it has survived quite well. And there's a few more on the property, and 2, I think, on the road verge, which the Shire will probably kill one way or another. Here's an Illawarra flame tree, and again, that's from up north, and you wouldn't think it would grow here, but if you go into town, one of the supermarkets has a car park, and in one corner of Kohl's supermarket car park is a big one. It's not very tall, but it's probably 60 or 80 years old. Australian red cedar that the beautiful timber comes from up north. The peculiarity of the Australian cedar is that it didn't grow in groves. So cedar cutters would have to look for it in the forests and go in, usually with horses, cut them down and pull the logs out, slab them, send them off to places like England, or sometimes even work them here. Just a little dwarf pomegranate. I generally sell large size ones. I don't always have the things that I have at any one point in time. A Virginia live oak from the east coast of America down to northern Florida and over to Texas. Gets to be a big tree. They used to make wooden ships out of it. Some of the great warships were made from it. Pit props in mines, buildings, of course, railway sleepers. I shouldn't even talk about it in front of this poor child of a tree. That is what its mother or grandfather was used for by men, because some of it's kind of an obscenity, really, what people use things for. Also a holly oak, in this case, the European holly oak. Captain Cook's boat could have been made from this. Many people say English oak, and sure enough, they used English oak, but they preferred some of the holly oaks if they could get them. They were tougher still. Macadamia from New South Wales, cold hardy. Macadamia tetraphylla. And another one here. This one is a Chickasaw plum, I think, from its look. Yes, it is. Prunus angustifolia from Texas and southwest in the U.S. Very pretty, fast, and it grows in limestone areas along the rivers, and it helps hold the riverbanks, the sands and gravels, so the river doesn't lose its control. It bears a very late plum, 2 months after anything else in this climate. Bright red, that big, tastes good, and very nice of it to be 2 months later, so there's no plums to eat, and then that one bears plums. This is a specimen of the bald cypress from the Everglades in the U.S. And I say the Everglades, that's in southern Florida, but this grew right up into Georgia and even South Carolina and over into Mississippi, Alabama, and East Texas. This one's the one you can see on television in the swamps in Florida with the big fan boats running through the water and huge trees coming out of the water in places where the tides come in and the tides go out. This thing lives in water and it cheats by sending up some like periscopes, or what do you call them when you're diving? You have a mask and they snorkel. They send up some roots from the mud up through the water and above the water so that the tree can breathe, because as you know, they breathe through their roots. And where there's a lot of water, they can't breathe. A China fir, Cunninghamii fortunei, no, Cunninghamii lanceolata. This thing's 10 years old. It would be happier out of its pot and in the ground. I have a couple that are 15 or 20 feet high on the property, and I've seen a couple in the Dandenongs that are a bit bigger. Ultimately, of course, it's several feet in diameter, and it's commonly called coffin wood in China. Light, soft, scented, strong, used for burying people in China for thousands of years. A giant mugwort, which I mentioned earlier. Here's an odd one. This is a black chokecherry from North America. It's an unusual bush here, and the fruit are quite small, about 1/4 of an inch in diameter, and in clusters, and they are edible, mostly cooked and made into jams or jellies, and it has 2 wild Canary Island angelicas, or tree angelicas, in the pot as well. They are weeds. They are a plant in the wrong place. I could get them out of there. I might. Then again, someone might be happy to have them there. And I can smell Angelica family in those leaves. This one I've already mentioned. It's a paper mulberry from China, and there were some horse chestnuts.